It's going to be.
Okay, I'm gonna hit the button.
Okay, all right. Good morning. I am here with Central Berks Regional Police Chief Ray Serafin to my left, Chief County Detective Michael Gombar to my right, Criminal Investigator Darren Mandel of the Central Berks Regional Police Department is also here next to Chief Serafin. Today, we have filed charges against two individuals, William Wilson Smoot, Jr., 47 years of age, who resided in the Exeter Township area, and Joseph George Lachina, 28 years of age, who resided in the Exeter Township, Reading, PA area. They have been charged with murder of the first degree, murder of the second degree, murder of the third degree, robbery, aggravated assault. Mr. Smoot was charged with possessing instruments of crime. Both have been charged with tampering with physical evidence and criminal conspiracy to commit all of the above offenses. This investigation began on October 25th of this year, when it was reported that a body had been located up on near 6 List Road in Lower Alsace Township. That is an area on the mountain, an area that is in the jurisdiction of the Central Berks Regional Police Department. They responded, and as part of the investigation, it was not initially determined who the victim was, but later, through investigative methods, the victim was identified as Anthony DelCollo, also of the Exeter Township area. The individual, an autopsy was done on that individual, and during the autopsy it was determined that the cause of death was multiple sharp force injuries, which has been described as stabs and chops, and the manner of death was homicide. The parents of the deceased were interviewed. They were very frank with detectives, and they did inform detectives that their son had an issue with the use of controlled substances. They also informed detectives that their son generally drove a blue 2014 Ford F-150 pickup truck, and while it was jointly owned, that Anthony, the deceased, was the primary user of the pickup. Soon after this investigation began, we, through some other investigative methods, we were able to determine that Mr. DelCollo was purchasing drugs from the residence of the defendant, William Smoot, and Lisa Rockoff at 1051 Fox Road in Exeter Township. We believe that that was the source of drugs for Mr. DelCollo, and it was a source for other individuals. Thereafter, and that is just part of the investigation, we determined that this is where Mr. DelCollo was most likely getting his drugs, as he did have a problem, an issue with controlled substances. Furthermore, we learned during this investigation that the blue Ford F-150 was recovered by the Reading Police Department. That was recovered at 101 Hancock Boulevard, which is in the area just off of Lancaster Avenue in the city of Reading. And through surveillance cameras, we were able to determine that Ford F-150 was traveling westbound away from the crime scene approximately 14 minutes after the body was discovered. So the discovery of that truck was an important part of this investigation. We were able to view surveillance video of the truck traveling westbound from the crime scene on Lancaster Avenue towards Hancock Boulevard and go over the Binghamton Street Bridge. That truck was searched by detectives from my office and Central Berks Regional Police Department. There was located in the truck itself some blood on the driver's seat and on the floor of the driver's area of the vehicle, near and on the gas and brake pedals. Through further investigation, we were able to determine that location where the truck was taken, the truck was dumped, was a property that is owned by the estate of George Giles. This is the stepson of one of the George's adult children, who was allegedly maintaining the property, and that individual was identified as Joseph Lakina, and Lakina had previously provided the police with an address of 101 Hancock Boulevard. That is connected defendant Lakina to this property, to where the vehicle had been dumped. And through some further on, through some surveillance, we saw Mr. Lakina in that area soon after the truck was parked at that residence in Reading. During this investigation, we were also identified, which we will call witness number one. And witness number one was present when Mr. DelCollo was killed on October 25th in 2021. She told us that Mr. DelCollo owed approximately $300 for drugs to Mr. Smoot. They drove to the area of Smoot and Lakina. The two co-defendants drove to the area of 6 List Road in a white Toyota RAV4, which is registered to Smoot's girlfriend, Lisa Rockoff. The RAV4 was backed into an east driveway entrance to Rotary Park in front of the closed gate. Smoot was the driver. Lakina was hiding in the rear cargo area. When they were in that area, Smoot called DelCollo, and DelCollo told them and was told to meet them in the area of 6 List Road so that DelCollo could buy drugs. Those drugs brought Mr. DelCollo to that area. He arrived in his Ford pickup truck, the 2014 Ford pickup truck that was later found in the city of Reading. They talked briefly, and at some point during this interaction, DelCollo entered the rear passenger side of the RAV4, where he was restrained by Lakina, who had been hiding in the rear cargo area of that vehicle. Smoot then walked to the rear of the RAV4, opened the hatch, pulled out a sword that appeared to possibly have no handle, and while DelCollo was restrained by Lakina, Smoot stabbed DelCollo through the back with the sword 2 times. Smoot then pulled DelCollo out of the RAV4 using the sword while the sword was still stuck in Mr. DelCollo. Needless to say, a senseless act of violence. The sword was removed from DelCollo's back by Smoot, and then Smoot drove to the area of corner of Little Rock Road and Crystal Rock Road in Muhlenberg Township, where Mr. Smoot cleaned up his vehicle using solvents and other material to clean his vehicle which had been at the murder scene. Smoot told Lakina to run over DelCollo's head. As he stated, make sure that motherfucker is dead. Furthermore, as had been reported previously, a search warrant was then executed at 1051 Fox Road in Exeter Township later on, and we believe that Smoot built a fire in the backyard of that address where he resided, and he built that fire, and in that fire he destroyed a number of items of evidence, including the floor mats from the RAV4 and Smoot's clothing and shoes. Also destroyed in that fire was Anthony DelCollo's cellular telephone and wallet that we believe were removed from the scene of where the murder took place. We have also done interviews with numerous other people. We have executed numerous search warrants to obtain phone records, which will be utilized in the prosecution of this case. We have identified individuals who were present when the fire took place in the fire pit and when these items were destroyed. We also interviewed some other witnesses which have provided us corroborating information as to what took place and the involvement of Mr. Smoot and Joseph Lakina in the homicide of Anthony DelCollo. This was an intensive investigation, and my office and the Central Berks Police Department dedicated numerous man-hours to identify these suspects, to put together this case, and I am very, very pleased with the teamwork that took place here, but for the great teamwork, these two perpetrators who committed this senseless act of violence could still be on the streets of our community. They are not, thankfully. And I want to commend the work of the Central Berks Police Department and the detective unit of the District Attorney's Office for a job well done. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Ray Serafin of the Central Berks Police Department.
Thank you, John. I just want to talk a little bit about the cooperation I received from the District Attorney's Office along with my office, and the countless hours that was put into this investigation and the quality of work that these investigators have completed. As the District Attorney stated, we basically left no stone unturned, and we will continue to follow up and produce other information related to this case as we can. And again, I want to thank two individuals, the lead investigators, Detective Sergeant Mandel and Detective Tom Weaver. They did an outstanding job. I couldn't thank these two gentlemen more than anything. Chief Gombar, in producing a quality team that was a very gruesome scene. And we didn't have identification immediately. We didn't have a whole lot to go on, but the tenacity of our investigators is what got us to this day. And I just want to thank everybody for the quality work that they've done.
Any questions?
Yeah. So he was killed up at Lister then, obviously. How is it? Who found him? Was it just like somebody?
I think he was found by passerbys who just happened to be in the area, who called 911 to report a body. which was found approximately 20 feet off of List Road in the area of Rotary Park.
Okay, and, it appears that he was killed over drugs and that connection with these people, $300 that he owed them, is that what we're?
That's, to this date, that's the only motive that we have been able to uncover. As Chief Serafin stated, this is an ongoing investigation. If we uncover any additional motive, evidence, that will be presented in court. But to date, a drug debt appears to be the motive behind this senseless act of violence.
What substance or a variety of?
What?
What substance was he purchasing from them?
We believe that pills, opioid pills, and maybe some heroin, but clearly some opioid pills that we've been able to identify. And the promise of I have opioid pills, Percocet, was what lured Mr. DelCollo to this area when he was to meet Mr. Smoot there and at that location.
Do you have photographs of the two suspects, or could we get them somewhere?
We will be able to provide them at some point.
They're being arraigned today.
Yeah, they'll be arraigned today, so I believe that we'll be able to get you photographs in the near future.
Okay,
We will absolutely provide those to you.
thank you.
There was a lot there, so.
Sorry.
Did they know Smoot Jr. and before, or is that the first time they kind of met?
No, they were all, they knew each other.
Oh, okay. And then what kind of sword was it? What type of sword and how long,
We have not uncovered the sword to date,
Oh,
so,
okay.
so we are still looking for the sword, but it has been described to investigators as a sword. Okay? Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
How are you?
Thanks, Jeff.
No problem.
We can send them CPA photos. They're recent enough,
Yeah.
so when I go back, I'll just send them along.
Okay, great.
Because I'm gonna release the press release to the other meetings.
Oh,
which is
sure.
good. So
Yeah, that'd be great.
instead of waiting for the arraignment.
John, they're being arraigned.
We'll throw it out on that.
That'd be good, so we can include them in the story.
Sure.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. As soon as I get back.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Hey, so guys, make sure you
I think we do,
Well, yeah.
but we need to get this uploaded right away, because that's the long sound, and we do it
Well,
before.
I've been talking with Joe.
Good, so where will it be?
So where we
Okay.